I'm Shelley Rogers and I run a consultancy called Individual and Organisational Development. Take the employment piece out of it and just think of the title. So my title is Organisational Psychologist. So the title Psychologist is a protected title. It's part of a suite of titles that are protected under the Australian Health Practitioners Regulatory Authority. So it includes doctor and nurse and an array of protected titles. So only people who've got registration can use that title. The organisational piece, part of that title, is associated with a set of skills and additional training that I've done on top of my masters for registration that speak about my level of knowledge about organisational psychology. And so that too is protected. So you could be an organisational psychologist and have an employment title of Director of HR. So I happen to run a business and my professional title is Organisational Psychologist. Well, I came to psychology as a rather large midlife change. So prior to any psychology anywhere in my life, I had started out life. I'd been to university in Western Australia. I became a high school teacher for a few years, went on and left that and did other things. I worked in recruitment and training and I travelled and I came back and did lots of other things. And then I got retrenched. And I had to do some serious reinvention. What am I going to do now? And just realised that I had a lot of generalist skills and no particular specialist skills, and made the decision that I eventually wanted to, I'm going to use the word in quotes, specialise in psychology and think that I've chosen the most generalist part of psychology, which suits me. So yes, as a very mature age student, that's how I get here. I'd done a lot of training and I'd worked as both a teacher and an adult educator. I'd been involved in recruitment and I just knew that I didn't know enough and it only took me so far. And it was just, what is it that I wanted to do and be able to contribute? And how did I want to help people? And it seemed, and I think it was a good call, that psychology and particularly organisational psychology really matches me and how I want to work and what I want to offer. So in that transition after I'd become retrenched, I'd already started exploring mediation, and I did what was then a postgraduate certificate in mediation at the University of South Australia with Dale Bagshaw. Then I started an MBA and realised that that was more for specialists, and I was already a generalist. I didn't need this general education. I needed something very, very specific, and that's where I started. I had no psych in my first degree, so I could have done the bridging course, which is a postgraduate qualification. I just wasn't certain I was going to get marks that were good enough to get me into honours. So I took another year. I did undergraduate subjects out at McGill and got there eventually. Once I completed my undergraduate year honours. Now, I'd already completed 3 degrees at the University of South Australia, and Adelaide has 3 universities, so I thought, I'm coming in as a very mature age student, time to get to know everybody. So I applied for and was accepted into the honours program at Flinders University. And then I was applied for and accepted a place in the Masters of Organisation and Human Factors at the University of Adelaide. So I'm a graduate of all three universities. Having, by the time I got to graduate, I'm now close, well, I was then close to about 30 years work experience, working. I can't say that I went off and got work experience exactly. In the Masters, you do 1,000 hours of placement, so certainly get a lot of work experience there. Had I been someone coming straight through school, I'd be thinking, if you wanted to go down an organisational route, actually any job will give you relevant work experience, provided you think about what it is you're doing. Who are you working for? How are you working? How does the team function? How does conflict manage? And so on and so on. It varies all the time. Pre-COVID, I would have said about 70% of my work was pretty straight organisational psychology. COVID changed a lot of things, and one of that is the level of uptake of people seeking assistance for their personal mental health. So I'm finding, I'd probably say, instead of maybe that only being 30% of my business, some weeks it's 50%. And it's mostly people, how do they manage themselves around their new working environments, or how do they manage people in very difficult times. Of my organisational work, a lot of that is coaching. I also do mediations, I do investigations. They're the usual things. I also do training. I've developed a workshop that I deliver maybe 10 times a year, targeted at people as they transition from being a member of their team to leading that team. And so yeah, I do a lot of varied work. It varies whether I'm working with groups, leaders of groups, or individuals for their personal needs. So obviously when I'm training, whether it's my From Mates to Manager workshop or some other training that an organisation might need, I'm working with a group of people. And now I've got good at doing that online as well as face-to-face. Working with an organisation might be that I am meeting various groups of people within an organisation. I'm thinking here of one that I did some work with over the last maybe 3 years, where we reviewed their induction processes. So I would meet with HR and I would meet with people in the field who would talk about what worked and what didn't work. So different groups of people, and my role was to gather information, synthesise it, make critique and provide guidance back to the organisation. I do a lot of coaching, that's one-to-one work. A lot of people, when they start in this field, think they're going to coach and want to coach. And I think that's an area that you have to spend a bit of time working up to. Even with my prior work experience, I didn't feel that I was skillful enough for at least 4 or 5 years to be a really good coach. The way I think about this, that the undergraduate is about content, it's about the base of knowledge, a little bit of understanding of where the wealth of information that informs the science of psychology comes from, and how it changes over time. And to not understand that means that you wouldn't understand how some people come to psychology, because they come to it as a client at different points in the journey of psychology. So it's sort of like building a history. and some knowledge. That's what I see the undergraduate as having given me, and it was only and some tools that then I got to practice using in honours, and much more practicing and applying in masters. There are lots of challenges. Keeping on top of the regulatory and ethical requirements is a responsibility that every psychologist has. So from managing confidentiality on a day-by-day, client-by-client basis, making sure that when should I be working with multiple clients from, say, one organisation, how do I manage that? Is that appropriate? I've just had a conversation with the HR of a company about some coaching that I'm about to do, and there are two individuals, and there are a number of options that we might have considered: an investigation, not pertinent, possibly a mediation. Would that give the organisation what it needed? No, I don't think so. Then how was I going to coach this person who perhaps is a little resistant? And how am I going to work with the organisation, and what setup needs to go on to make sure that that person is fully engaged, I get the data I need, the organisation gets the outcome they want, and how do I track it all? So there's just a few of the considerations that are going on every day. It's actually quite lovely seeing people grow when they get stuff, when they work it out, when they come in and go, oh, that was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. Or I did that and life is so much better. That's gorgeous. That's what it's about. And I don't know, this is going to sound horrible. Sometimes I'm advising organisations about how to, or should I say, if they should consider terminating someone, and providing guidance around how to do that, and how to do that as graciously and with as little damage to the person and to the organisation as possible. Getting the fit right, and sometimes people don't understand that they are the wrong fit. Everyone else can see that, and so sometimes there's a process to help them understand you could be somewhere else and get more joy. Well, thinking about psychology generally, because there are many fields of psychology, organisational psychology is only one. Look broadly during your undergraduate years. You don't have to make a decision until the end of honours. Keep your options open, and do look for opportunities to maybe get a little work experience, or go to networking functions with psychologists. The Australian Psychological Society runs regular social events here in South Australia. So you get to talk with practising psychologists and ask them, what do you do? And ask questions like I've been asked.